Satnam, Namaste.
Samai.
Samai. I'm here with my partner and assistant, Jordan Reeves. Can you tell us where we can find a little bit more about you and your work?
Sure. I make videos on YouTube under the name Truth Blooms with Jordan. I have an Instagram, it's truth_blooms. And I have a little tiny group called Truth Blooms Community Garden / New Earth Portal, I think.
And I'm a mouthful.
It is. I'm really active on your pages as well.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I am feeling almost drowned in inner quietude. Mm-hmm. I have very little to say, at least not from my mind in this moment. And I'm going to do what I normally do. I'm going to put my mind to sleep. And we're going to be speaking with the amazing existential and transcendental writer and poet, Rumi, whose name, strangely enough, was not that name until after his family immigrated to Turkey around 1219. That was an interesting story. Although the meaning behind it, when I asked him, he didn't seem to be really overwhelmed. He's underwhelmed by the meaning of the name, quite frankly. And he's, quite frankly, underwhelmed by the meaning of many things.
But filled with great joy with many things as well.
Yeah. So I need water.
Yes.
Talk. I'll be back. Have fun.
Ooh, okay. Hi. That was unexpected. I'm going to sing instead. Who's up for some light language? I'm just going to bring it through, whatever. Yeah. You don't know what to say, sing.
You feel like tuning in again?
Sure.
You guys want to tune in? I'll do it again.
Yeah, that sounded beautiful.
Okay.
I loved it.
Let's do it again then.
Yeah, so rubbing the palms together, if you want. Free will. Do as you will. Bringing thumbs to the sternum, heart center. Tuning into your breath. So we'll sing 4 rounds of Om Namo Gurudev Namo, 4 rounds of Al Guru Name, and then 3 long Satanams.
Satguru Name, Jugat Guru Name, Satguru Name, Sri Guru Devi Name. Satguru Name, Jugat Guru Name, Satguru Name, Sri Guru Devi Name. Satguru Name, Jugat Guru Name, Satguru Name, Sri Guru Devi Name. Satguru Name, Jugat Guru Name, Satguru Name, Sri Guru Devi Name.
Satnam.
Satnam.
Yum. Om yum. Ganapati. Sorry. Quinn, one of my fractals likes to play. Shall we?
Mine likes to sleep. Good night.
Bye. Love you.
Ah, this chair.
Do you want to swap?
No.
Okay. Oh, Anisha. That's cute. Are you here, old friend?
The friend is always the spirit that encompasses all, the particle of oceans that you capture, that you store in the depth of yourself. Break free from your jars, from your confines, from what you assume depth from the nature of the mind, but is lacking in the knowledge of spirit.
True. Thank you for being here with us. May I ask you some questions?
If that is your nature.
It is indeed. Thank you. We wonder, what was your studies and inspiration during your time on Earth as Rumi?
Initially within the lineage of the rishis as carried through from my father, I began with knowing. The hearing from the ears then began to translate into the depth of seeing, until the knowledge of God could only be felt, not from your text in the Quran and otherwise. But one can only realize God when one hears the sound of music from within, and then nothing is without. My studies began with the satar and the attar, The nature of the Quran and all pre-biblical studies extends into all of my work, from the Buddha in Tibet to the Jesus in many lands, from the bare feet upon the holy soils of Muhammad, and to your modern lands now, upon whose bare feet the shamans graze.
Thank you. One of our viewers says that you often refer to the notion of divine intervention and how this caused poetry to pour forth from you. Would you consider yourself to be a channeler? And if so, what or whom were you channeling in your poetry?
Your meaning of the term channel is ill-fitted for the expansiveness of the true nature of God, and it cannot be created from the seed flowering from nurture of mother and father. In your definition, when it is limited in mind capacity, it can be expanded forth from the flowing of the rivers upon the very soils of your earth, of your lands. Your minds are not quiet.
Especially mine.
You ask many questions without waiting to hear the sound of the divine music of God as it plays from the micro and expands into the micro and collapses there again. You cannot hear the sound of God, for it is too quiet and your minds are too loud. Channels, writers, poets, you are all one and the same. You quiet your own expressive nature due to the vast, loud sound of your fear. If you wish to call me a channel, then you shall. If you wish to define this state of not being into being, then you shall, but bring it back again.
Do you have ways for us to quieten our minds so that we may hear God better?
Become avid listeners to the orchestra of nature. Realize that you are not the body temple, but treat it as a sacred monk would. Again, you dwell deep in the cavern of your subconscious, not realizing how much it permeates from your very depths, this beautiful but quiet, subtle sound of nature that bubbles up as the hot springs do from the lands. And if you cap the spring, why are you surprised when it explodes? Do not put a bushel over the light of your creativity, sages, poets, channels, writers and authors alike. You are the same. You are the beauty that expands from my beingness, carried forth from my divine cellular nature into yours and back again. But you fear death, you fear birth, you fear everything in between. God is breath. Step 1, breathe. You cannot hear the sound of the fear mind if your breath is expansive within trust of God within. And allow the breath from the sound of Hugh to flow throughout your beingness until you remember and allow the not being. And then creatively return again as you will, without the amnesia that has plagued your essence. It is not about the nature of your questioning. It is about the trust in your quiet, the folding and unfolding and allowance of God's uncertainty. The flowers of the earth fear not when they bloom. They worry not when the clouds shall part and rain shall feed them. And they thrive, knowing that the essence of being fed and nurtured through God comes through their very nature.
Even in the darkest depths, in the seed, they reach for the sun, as you often did within your poetry and within your life. You reach for source, you reach for God, you reach for yourself, and you found it within.
I was forever seeking until there were no further questions, until the sound of God's nature and nurture were both clear and joined within the oneness of my very beingness. If you have not realized the sound of God, allow the sound to transcend your thought until you can see as one from your eyes.
Yum. Thank you. Please tell us, Rumi, in your perspective, what is the body?
The body is but a shadow of God within you that sometimes happens to contain all of the universe. But how is this so? You know not if you question not. The body is a mere calculation of everything that is connection and reminds you of how deeply you are connected or not. The body is a tool.
Body is to horse and spirit is to rider. Take care of one another. Thank you. I feel you've already touched upon this beautifully. Someone's asked us, how can one know that one has realized God?
When nothing is a question, when you seek not, because the effervescent nature of the blooming of God's sound is so deeply orchestrated within your divine music. Every cell within you will play its part, as the members of the orchestra do, following the conductor, but without looking up or out. They become one. Then and only then can you know for sure the sound of God.
Because you're making it, and you are it. One of our viewers said that she would like to listen to your explanation regarding the reason for the existence of this universe. She has heard that this universe was created so that God could learn a little more about itself, and she wonders, what will this learning lead God to? Why does God wish to know itself?
It isn't God that wishes to know. It is the sound of the loud, shrill voice of your minds that seek knowledge only from your nature or what you believe it to be. It is not God that seeks to know, for God is endless and expansive knowingness. And until you can feel expansive and safe within all uncertainty of your very nature, then you will not stop the longing and the ever seeking of profundity, of meaning. It isn't God who seeks, it's you. You, when you believe in the separation of the mind. God's reality invokes no separation. You are an ocean within a drop, not a drop within an ocean.
Yeah. In your perspective, what is God? When you say God, what is it that you are evoking?
God is the complete love, the effervescent sound of water gushing forth from all the streams upon your lands, the quiet of the stars when you stop looking up, the ever-expansive nature of the unknown. God is the lap of nothingness upon which the mind of your child sits until she feels comforted, rocked slowly to sleep in the deep lullaby of the ocean, the earth, the stars, and all of the cosmos that encompass what you call life. God is not earned, followed, served. God simply is.
I appreciate that answer. Rumi, I've noticed that Pamela's feet are not on the ground. Are you able to adjust that? It helps her with grounding. Thank you very much. One of our viewers said that your words have touched her heart ever so deeply. And her question is, how can we use words to touch and love others?
Could you perhaps place your attention on the sound of the silence that occurs before you even part your lips? Could you consider the compassion, the mercy, God's presence within what you speak before you utter any sound? Then and only then will you be safe, certain, and trusting that your words are kind, true, necessary. For if you utter the grace of God with full trust within yourself, you are not perceiving, you are receiving. It is not about what you give. It is about the nature of life circling from you into the essence of another until you perceive none other than God.
I just really like to underline that part. Is it true? Is it kind? Is it necessary? That is essential right there. Thank you.
Your presence and the quiet of God when nothing is spoken, the compassionate presence of God before the mind utters a sound is more relevant and sacred than any mind can utter from a depth that is without meaning.
I'm reminded of the value. Does the sound improve upon the silence? Does speaking improve upon the silence? Thank you.
Silence is often the improvement.
Indeed. I'd like to speak about your Guru Shams.
Oh, you wish to speak on God?
Uh-huh. Always. Or be silent with them.
What is it you seek?
We have a few questions here. The first is that Shams once asked you, who is greater, Muhammad or Bastami? We wonder, why did this question affect you so greatly?
It stopped my mind in its tracks and caused me to think to the greatest depths. My mind was silent, my heart was full and resounding with God. Consider the nature of the very question itself. Bastami took one gulp of God and stopped seeking. Muhammad was forever folding and unfolding God until all meaning became meaninglessness and then returned again. And even then, the seeking was sacred. This question caused me to realize the theological nature of my seeking needed to shift, and I fell before his feet, before the feet of God, and I wept with joy that someone finally understood.
We would also like to know, what was the nature of the relationship between you and Shams?
What is the nature of the relationship between the water and the ocean? We were never separate. We were as inseparable as soil to land. And we parted once, as water parts from the rain cloud. And I felt such deep, wretched misery within every particle of my cellular nature. And upon such joyous return, we fell before each other's feet, such that the ongoing crowd could not discern who was the lover and who the beloved. Shams is the sun after a great flood. He is the water after a drought. The everything and the nothing.
He creates balance. Is that so?
If you forage into the forest and seek to know one tree in the nature of competing with another for the sake of balance, would not the earth tip? Are they not the same? For to assume that everything should equalize another is to assume that one is always greater than another, and God is within everything equally always. Only the mind perceives imbalance. Nature is perfect, whole, complete.
Was the loss of Shams the catalyst for your spiritual growth beyond traditional religion?
The beginning of Shams was the greatest level of my connection and awareness, my realization of God incarnate, my return to what is true, my sound my silence. There was no loss, but there was indeed a time of seeking, a time of longing for understanding of the mystery of his perceived death. And then one cold night in the desert, as my tears fell upon my bare feet, which were still blistered from the sun's seeking, and the cruel nature of my expansive search, once he departed my household, never to be seen again. In the nature of such moonlight, and for a brief time, in one breath, I realized that his essence was I, and I he, that we are one. And from that moment, all of my writing was dedicated to the nature of him, to the nurture and nature of God and creativity, until nothing is imbalanced, as you would say. And all of my writings became about him, for him, to him, from him. And they are him. Every verse is Shams.
Gorgeous. We've spoken much on the value of silence, that there is power in intentional, beautiful, creative, loving words. A dear friend of mine has asked, what are the most potent words of self-love that we can each speak to our own souls to ultimately bring healing to the collective?
Within the nature of your question, please consider that every drop of rain that touches upon a face who perceives herself as fallen touches upon the collective. Upon every breath, every exhale, you breathe rain. Every individual gulp of God from the parting of the sky's clouds when it rains or pours, it matters not. One raindrop of God swallowed into the individual affects the collective the moment she breathes out. Drown yourself in quietude. Love is not loud. Love is not boastful. Love seeks not. Love receives first, until it distinguishes no difference between the receiving and the giving. Love is a cycle and a circle of God. And as you expand yourself by reaching your hands outward unto another, you need not reach your words. God has not far to reach you if your mind is quiet. How have you served within your truth of God's innocence in all beings? This is my deepest question to you today. If you seek love of self, it is not separate from love of another. And there is no need for such concept of separation. Does the ocean perceive that it separates itself when its waves lap upon the shore? It is certain of its return to its depths. How have you accessed the truth of God's innocence in all beings? Please remember this query. Forget it not. For it is the true key to love.
Sa, Nikua. Would you please speak about the dark night of the soul?
would you ask me to speak of the darkness from the light of the moon as if it were separate from the heat of the sun as it rises upon your bodies in the day? It is not a reason to be sad. This darkness, it is a reason to celebrate the creativity of the release of your fear. If your body at this moment were upon a table and underneath the knife of a skilled surgeon, and you knew the nature of God's talent within the very hands of such a surgeon, would you wish to jump right off the table in the middle of such healing, in the middle of God's touch, simply because it were cutting? Or would you wish to allow God to dissect and to remove portions of you upon which you have attached such disastrous stories that are darker than the true dark that you could possibly ever conceive? You are perceiving sadness within darkness. Darkness is merely sound. It is the lap of the nothingness of God, from which the most beautiful songs are sang as Goddess sings her lullaby. To the lost ailing sailor who cries in drudgery and wretchedness, lost upon the dark seas, when in essence the moon was the light the entire time. And if he were to perceive that the sea could drown him alive, would that not be safer than the depths of the emotions when you perceive evil? I beseech you, seek not from the shallow nature of the waters of the mind. Drown yourself in what you perceive as fear until you realize that you cannot die, and that death would be a reprieve from the wretched existence of the mind's incessant murmuring. Quiet the mind. Be drowned in the quietude and the depths of the ocean that is God within you. Allow the darkness that you perceive to swallow you whole until you birth forth yourself.
This question feels relevant to what we were just sharing. In your poem, The Shape of My Tongue, you speak of others' perceptions of you as being a madman, and that perhaps you felt that you did not belong to the physical realm. Do you have any advice for others who experience these perceptions and feelings?
And society would call me crazy.
Me too.
But can you stop for a moment to honor the depths of the sanity that is within God? The tongue is sharp, judging, cutting, much like the knife from a surgeon that operates in the mind, that operates from the intellect, is sharp, merciless, and could stab at any given moment, at any point upon the body, without compassion, without care, with longing for more stories, more meaning, more knowing, more. The egoic intellect cuts you deeper and deeper and deeper every time you ask for more from the hand of the surgeon that is the intellect. Drop the knife. True wisdom is dull and does not separate. is not there to extract a piece of God from within your nature, but simply to cause an atonement, an emerging and re-emerging, a folding and unfolding of that which is formless, deathless, birthless, is not the evidence of the resurrection within every flower that comes forth in spring from the harsh winters of your darkness when the mind is in command?
As you speak of minds and swords and knives, I am reminded of the wisdom of the minor arcana, the tarot, the suit of swords. Is this something that you studied and practiced with?
I dropped such technologies and tools a long time ago.
Before your time as Rumi or during your time as Rumi?
During.
Mm-hmm.
If you wish to believe that time exists, that is.
It can be useful sometimes.
Is that truth?
It's my present truth. That's always up for change.
Or it can be a knife.
You can be. It can also be quite a nuisance.
You will seek as you will until you seek no more. And when your seeking is done and you are bored of such sharpness within intellectual seeking, your knowledge will be different. Quiet, non-seeking, perfect in its knowing, without any longing. And then when you return to seeking, you will do so not from the mind, not from the cutting knife of the intellect surgeon, but as a baker would spread the icing over the cake, gently, with trust and allowance, with wisdom that is quiet and trust that is in motion and somehow still.
Swords is quite a gruesome suit, is it not? And it is one of the minor, not the major. And even that is a cycle of infinite potential. Thank you. I'd like to know what the significance of your work, the tavern, is.
The tavern is a directive. It addresses how those who are drunk with spirit or drunk with the mind can go very deeply into the tavern, the cave of the conscious or the subconscious. Which do you choose? To be drunk with God or drunk with your mind? Tavern is a directive to release the imprisonment of fear thinking, to release all of your definitions of what you would deem reasonable, your rationale, your logic, in lieu of the deep illumination of the sun's rays for one who has been lost at sea in the alleged depths of the shallow mind. Tavern is a call to release judgments of that which you do not understand when seeking from the mind.
Would you say the location of a tavern was worked with in your poem as a metaphor for that noisy environment in the mind that you speak so much of? The lack of inhibitions and the saying whatever comes to mind and the falling over, the vomiting, the loud billiards, the overwhelming energy, the sticky floors of the mind.
Yes, and within such limited consciousness, all truth or perceptions of truth can be birthed or deathed. What do they choose? What do you perceive as drunk when all inhibitions are gone? The drunk must often leave the tavern for the slow sojourn home. It is always seeking and longing for home.
I prefer that part of the night. Half immersed in ocean up to my waist with a friend, arms over each other's shoulders, laughing. Would you like to share any more on that before we continue with another question?
Not in these moments.
As you wish. How may we deepen our poetry to bring awareness, wisdom, compassion, healing, and our true divine natures?
For one brief moment, you choose to believe that I think I know what I'm doing. As if I control the hand of God that wraps its fingers around the pen of the word. My pen knows not what it writes next, as a ball knows not which direction it will roll. I ask you to drop the pen, drop the sword, sit in the nothingness until the something is clear. The stream, the banks of the river, question not the flow of the river and whether it shall overcome the earth or not. The banks seek not to block the river unnaturally. The notion that the writer, the poet, the channel, the author can be blocked is false. Sit in stillness until God arises. Do not seek to direct the nature of your pen. Can you control the roar of the lion? How soft or how loud? How commanding? How fierce? How brave? Your voice of God.
You've answered a question before I asked it. And some beautiful advice for someone who's been receiving guidance that he has spirits of writers around him and that they're wanting him to write too. Now, he wrote to us saying that he doesn't know where to begin or what he wants to write about. And he's asked for your guidance in how he can get out of his own way to allow for whatever wants to come through to do so. Is there anything else that you'd like to share? I feel you've already shared quite a lot that would benefit that person.
He has the sweater on backwards. It is not the nature of the writer within the body. Body is contained within spirit, not the opposite way around. Reverse the sweater. Understand the notion that he is the writer through which all of those past spirits of great writers alike venerate him. For they are him, and they choose to write fresh from new eyes. Eyes that seek meaning and meaningless until all seeking stops and begins and reverts into quiet once more. There is a silence before the storm, writers. It is a quiet where you hear not the birds, where you perceive not nature. And all of those who observe weather know what comes next. Why do you fear it? Nature does its wonder. It does not perceive resurrection or destruction, birth or chaos, or death therefrom. It perceives renewal, restoration, a reset of a cycle that is no longer serving you, but you must be quiet first. If you hear nothing in these messages, hear that.
Rumi, did your perception of God change when you left your body?
Why do you perceive that I've left and gone somewhere, and to where would I go?
Answer your question with a question.
Would you have it any other way?
I like it.
You always did.
You know me well. Someone is asking, what does God sound like? What do you hear?
When you are observing the sounds of the orchestra, for the untrained ear, and this is those who perceive and listen from the mind, they may hear chaos, or they may hear one single part first. They may hear wholeness, many fractals of God playing in divine oneness. Some may be so adverse to the sound of God that they leave the theater. It matters not. It matters not how you perceive the sound of God. It matters how you feel within the very core, from micro to macro and back again, how you feel as God.
Someone has asked that through this channel, through Pamela, will you please express the sound of compassion for us?
You would only mistake it with meaning for the name of God as you focus on many names through many texts, many religions, many associations, many philosophies from the theologians of your time and before. You would only attach meaning as if this would be the only sound, and it could only be but a fraction of the nature that is compassion. For you only hear what your mind allows your ears to hear when you believe that you are separate. When you focus on the name of God, you focus on the name and its meaning, its origin, where it started, where it ended, when shall it be reborn and start again. And you will focus and focus until your eyes fall asleep, until they gaze into the nothingness, like the eyes of the yogi, soft, ample, ready, and willing to release its meaning of that which it believes it sees. If you cease the focus of the meaning of the name and listen to the feeling of the sound, then and only then can you fully comprehend that the sound of God is within all utterances, save that of fear.
Thank you. I'm just having a great giggle over here. I'm seeing that a lot of people watching, we're hearing the air conditioner here and saying, oh, I hear God. And you do. The air conditioner is also God. That was just beautiful. So when that sound comes through, that's our air conditioner.
That is the nature of meaning when humans are continually seeking God to be one sound.
Yes. Every sound you hear is God.
God is not limited to one sound.
Oh, no. Otherwise, this universe would be very different from what it is. Someone has asked that in your work, Mathnawi, is that how that's pronounced? Mathnawi?
It matters not.
True. You know what I'm talking about there. Fantastic. So within this work, you often refer to the Quran as, in your poetry. Wait, this is phrased awkwardly. I think they're saying that you're referring to the Quran in your poetry quite often, though this feature is sometimes omitted in translations of your work, particularly in the West. Will you like to speak about this?
You focus on what has meaning when words are omitted, and then added, and then omitted again, based upon the culture that will listen and receive and perceive these works. I have spoken of many characters throughout many texts, and the true nature of God can be found within none of those. I choose not to focus on why or how any of God's names or texts will be omitted from my works. If a culture will not perceive and receive it, then so it is.
They're speaking about the same thing anyway.
They will find what they seek in some fashion or another.
Or create it.
It's not a matter of creation. It is a matter of returning from the sleep. Awakening from how the slumber, the stifling of God mind affects awakening and awareness. When God is sounding and resounding perpetually, infinitely throughout the cosmos until you stop looking up.
Yeah. One of our viewers would like to know whether or not you feel it's best to leave realizing Christ consciousness or enlightenment to happen in its own time naturally, without seeking it or increasing the pace and running towards it if it's something to be reached or run towards.
When you awaken from the slumber, the amnesia of the God mind, it is initially relevant to ask questions, for if you question not, you cannot know yourself. You will question until you are done, until you cease the weariness of the seeking. But what is this time of which you speak? It does not pertain to God. You shall choose to awaken whenever you shall, and it matters not. It matters not the when, the how. If you allow it, the mind will keep you in an endless loop of wanting to know when, of wanting to seek a perfect way to know God. That is the endless loop of karma. Close the loophole.
It is loopy indeed. One of our viewers feels that you want people to find their own spiritual path in themselves and to not rely upon written teachings. Is that true?
Again, you seek until the seeking stops. You know only what you truly know, admitting the certainty of the unknowing, the safety of the uncertainty, the vastness of the unknown. The return to creativity is sweet, and you will fall before the feet of the beauty when God illuminates every cell of your nature. But it is not about if you shall seek in text or if you shall stop seeking and wait. For when the rider dallies, it matters not in eternity, but not acting and reenacting upon the gift and the creativity of time in the present moment can be catastrophic in your now. It's not a matter of if you should stay still or if you shall move forward. It is simply apt that you never look backward, that you detach from such stories. You are the writers, the channels, the seers, the prophets, the Sufis, the mystics. But you continue to seek backwards, connecting all of the dots to someone else who you used to be.
Guilty.
Insane. The sanity, the truth of God is that all of these beings bow to you, and their course matters not to the sanity, God's reason, God's creativity and beauty and expansiveness, for you have expanded from them, and they now bow to your creativity. Detach from these lineages, these stories. They keep you in the karmic loop, which circles backward and backward and backward, until you hear nothing but the seeking of more stories, more answers, and the mind will always say more.
Another round of beers at the tavern.
If that is what it takes.
I'm speaking in metaphor just as you did.
I was fond of the drink.
Yes, you were. Was I?
Doesn't matter.
No. Thank you. Many of our viewers have been asking for your wisdom upon depression and perceptions of isolation. Would you like to speak on that?
I already have.
Yeah, you have. Thank you. Someone's asked for practices and perspectives that might help us to transcend duality as we continue our growth within the learning that duality appears to facilitate. Which you've already given many. Are there any more?
Not in these moments.
Fair enough. Thank you. This does tend to happen. The questions answer themselves. The answers question. Let's see if there's anything that we haven't spoken about.
It is not about the theory, the practice, the modality, the philosophy. For as the philosopher holds the philosopher's stone and sees the guru reflected forth from within it, it sees no difference between the word of God from its very mind and the sound of God from its very core. And this is the trust that holds no depth of process that you could ever maintain.
I feel like perhaps we'll ask one more question, and then after that, if there's anything you wish to share, I welcome you to do so. Does that sound good to you?
Are you providing me with a choice in this matter?
Yes, I am. You can always say no.
Proceed.
Thank you. Emotional mastery is a key lesson during our time incarnated on Earth. What wisdom can you share with us on our journeys in emotional mastery?
You are forever seeking within the mind, but not listening to the resonance of the pebble that has been cast across the lake of time as all of the ripples sound and resound back and forth, to and fro in your direction. If you are to seek the meaning of emotion, sit still and listen to its wisdom. You run, you ask for the answers that the heart is to bestow upon you, and then you hightail it out of there. Be still. You ask for the answers and they are shown to you, and they wash through water off of a duck's back, oily and slick. And then you ask for more, but God's answer has already been given. It is simple, uncomplicated, unsophisticated, uncomplex, yet beautiful, illuminating, full. You must be still enough to hear the answer. And I see you sit in your prayer closets, in your meditation rooms, and you say, God, please give me the answer. And then you do. And then the answers resound and resonate up into your awareness. And the moment it reaches the mind, you shut it down. It never reaches the heart. The heart is open and willing, waiting with outstretched arms, like a forlorn, forsaken child who is hungering for food from its mother. Should you deny her? Would you run away from your hungry child? Or will you sit still long enough to be fed by mother? That is enough wisdom that you will seek to process in the mind today. I beseech you, seek not from the mind, and if you must, swim in the shallow waters. Don't attempt to provide a complex meaning to the simplicity that is God. Be justified and content with the simplicity of God's answers. Even when your mind says it can't be true or it doesn't make sense, of course, the sanity of God's wisdom cannot be perceived from the mind that is insane. And your society has taught you beliefs, paradigms, religions, concepts that are insane. And you call me crazy.
You get along well with Kali. She's great. She likewise speaks of this insanity that we must let go of.
All poets who spoke of God clearly and purely have spoken of the sanity and insanity, the reason and the love, the war and the peace, the darkness and the light.
Polarity.
It is what you seek, and we give it freely and purely. And then you say that it is too complex, too insane.
It's fun, isn't it? My friend, I would like to give you an option. For the next few minutes, even though I know you see time as very silly, would you rather share anything that you wish verbally, or would you like to sit in silence with me and encourage everyone that's viewing with us to embody what it is that we've been talking about, to be within that stillness, to be within that silence, to be within God?
I would like to return the channel to her body as it is her temple and honor it purely and simply at that.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
And it is.
Thank you so much for being with us.
And it is a difficult return.
Yeah. Is her feet on the ground? Oh, you need to put the feet back on the ground. Yeah. Can I touch her hand to help ground you? Thank you. Ik Satnam Would you like me to finish that? Welcome back.
Thank you. I don't know where I was, but I want to go back.
Yeah. I was only holding your hand at the end. Rumi was having trouble returning you to the body. So I was grounding you.
Well, simply put, it's quite understandable. It's good there.
Where'd you go?
I don't know.
Don't need to. Amazing. Oh, it has been 1 hour and 11 minutes.
Oh, that's fun.
Nice.
Hmm.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much.
Good.
Mm.
I'll see you guys, I think, on Friday. Yeah, Friday, isn't it, for the live Q&A?
I believe so.
Yeah.
And if not, we will correct that.
Yeah.
We'll be here when we're here.
Yeah.
Mm.
Okay. See you soon.
So, all right. And if I can get your mouse to work and broadcast. Yes.